and welcome to the BullCast podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me today is Court Winsett.
Hello, Katie.
And Cameron Spann.
Not shut down.
I was going to say, our door is shut down. We are shut down here. You have probably seen on the news, seen on social media, government shutdown.
I would say it is highly likely that when people listen to this episode, we are still in the middle of a government shutdown. We can always hope that it'll have been ended by now, but
there's a possibility. Yeah, this could be coming to you and this is all ended. We don't think that's going to be the case, which is why we're pushing this episode out pretty quickly. We want to explain to you what a government shutdown is, kind of what's going on, because this is a situation that a lot of people don't really understand the ins and outs of it. It's just like the threat of, oh, are we in a bubble? Or are we in a recession? Or are we, bear market, bull market? All this terminology that gets thrown at you. And it's just as a mass population, we're expected to understand it. But this is something that we need to go through. So our list, we're going to jump right in, is the past government shutdowns, because it's like, okay, this is happening now. Has this happened before? Yes, it has. Let's go ahead and go through this list here of...
This is probably the least exciting list we've ever done.
It's very boring list.
I mean, this is kind of like, hey guys, we're a pop culture, blah, blah, blah. No, we're going to depress you today.
Yeah.
And just looking at the oldest shutdown, it's more recent than I thought. So we'll get into that later, but who wants to go first?
Yep. This is really just a boom, 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 boom kind of list.
Yeah.
So the list is our past government shutdowns. We had a government shutdown in 95, 96. This would have been during the Clinton era of the White House, and Gingrich was the Speaker of the House of Representatives, one of the two houses of the Congress. It was 21 days, from 95 to 96. I still remember it. I can still remember it now. It was.
Cam, I don't think we remember it.
No. I was dumb and young.
Yeah, it was a standoff. Basically, Gingrich was starting a new style of pushing back against a president, because Gingrich had the House and the Senate, I think, and of course Clinton, that would be GOP in the House and Senate, and President Clinton was the president, and so he had veto power. And could they pass something that President Clinton wouldn't veto? And there was a standoff, but eventually it was settled. In 2013, there was another shutdown over the Affordable Care Act. It only lasted 16 days.
Okay.
2018 to 19. This one is apparently the longest in history. It was 35 days. It was while Trump was in office, and it centered on border wall funding. At the time when Trump was in office, this would have been in the latter half of his first term as president. So he had lost both the House and the Senate to Democrats at that point. And so it was very similar to the situation that Clinton found himself in back in the 90s when he was fighting against a Republican majority, except Trump was fighting against a Democratic majority. And that one lasted for 35 days because Democrats were absolutely opposed to any funding for the border wall, and Trump was absolutely insistent that we were going to build the big, beautiful wall.
Yep.
Now we come to today.
Yes, so we're in the thick of it right now, or obviously we're speaking into the future because this episode will launch in a couple of days. But we're in the thick of it right now, and it's for the scope and proposed workforce cuts is what's going on. What is a government shutdown? Just real simple Google search that'll tell you the federal government halts agency activities and services, ceases non-essential operations, furloughs non-essential workers, and retains only essential employees in departments that protect human life or property.
Right.
Shutdowns can also disrupt state, territorial, and local level of government. Okay, so yes, Social Security Department is still operational. They're going to make sure that you're getting your Social Security checks, things like that. But, and IRS, things like that. But where you've seen this impact, museums, were being shut down. Although I happened to look in DC, like the Smithsonian, they have funds allocated appropriately that they're able to stay open until the 11th. So actually tomorrow, from where we're recording this episode on the 10th. So that's giving you perspective of kind of what's happened to this point of our knowledge at this moment. And furlough. Okay, just in case everybody knows, furlough. Court, give us the definition of furlough.
Well, I have never actually looked up the definition of the word furlough, but a furlough is generally basically a period of time where you're off work.
Yeah, suspension or discharge of a worker on account of economic conditions or shortage of work, essentially temporary.
Yeah.
So all these employees they're on a vacation.
It's basically, I think probably the reason they use the word is because it's a suspension of your work, but suspension has a certain, disciplinary tinge to it. So they don't want to say that the employees are all suspended. They don't want to say that they're laid off, because technically an employee that's laid off, although they could be rehired, a layoff is an unemployment, which opens up people to, they're terminated. I mean, there's a little bit of a difference, but so what they're basically saying when they say furlough is you are temporarily off duty until such time as we can actually fund your position. And Congress has to pass a budget. It is within the powers of Congress to pass our budgets. The famous phrase being Congress has the power of the purse, or the power of the purse strings, whichever you've heard. Basically, they control the money. And so a lot of the interesting talk around this subject involves who actually has the authority to do what and who is actually trying to make the decisions. And right now, the responsibility lies with Congress. Congress has to, or should have, by September 30th of this year, they should have passed a budget, or at least passed, if they couldn't pass, there are a total of, I think, 12. There are 12 different appropriation bills that they're supposed to pass that combined make up our federal budget. And they're supposed to pass all of these different bills and fund all of the different departments and all of the different undertakings of the federal government. And if they can't pass a bill that budgets for the next year, which is ideal, obviously, then what they'll do is they'll pass a CR, or continuing resolution. And basically a continuing resolution means like, okay, we can't pass a budget right now. We're going to pass this bill that basically says we're going to stay under the old budget until we can pass a new one. So it's
kind of putting a Band-Aid on things like, hey, we're working on it. We're going to continue to move forward, do things like that. As it says, it's a continuing resolution.
Yeah. So it is a kicking of the can. Yes. I mean, it's basically like, we'll worry about that later.
Kind of what we've talked about with Social Security, how we've got to deal with that, but people, different administrations keep kicking it down the can.
Yeah.
Can I ask a spur of the moment question here?
Yes.
I need help with just general civics. So our House Speaker, Mike Johnson, I keep seeing a lot of videos of people like hounding him about this. What is his role as House Speaker when it comes to a government shutdown?
Easiest answer to your question is Mike Johnson is the Speaker of the House. The House has already passed a continuing resolution. They're calling it a clean bill. Basically, there's no additions to the current ongoing budget. There are no subtractions from the current ongoing budget. So it's a clean bill that would continue funding of the government until late November, basically. They've already done it. So Mike Johnson's position is, my job's done. It's up to the Senate, and Democrats in Senate are holding up the Senate passing the same bill. And so that is a very basic picture of Mike Johnson's role. He is the Speaker of the House. He is the one who determines when the House is in session, what is going to go to the floor to be voted on. He can decide that a bill can be voted on or not. And he's basically saying, I don't need to open back up the House. I don't need to bring the reps back. We passed it. It's
I did my job.
Senate. Yeah, you guys get to it. There are a lot of arguments of things that he could do to help mitigate the damage that people are experiencing because of the shutdown right now. There are some fair points among the points that are being made, but his position is, guys, I got it done. What are y'all doing over there?
That is very helpful for me.
Yeah.
When the House passes a bill, they can pass the bill. If the Speaker of the House brings a bill to the floor of the House and it's voted on, then it can pass with a majority of the vote, right? So it passed the House. And you're like, well, what the heck? The Republicans have a majority in the Senate too. They just take it to the Senate and vote on it, and it'll pass, and then boom, we've got a budget. What's the problem? In the Senate, you can do something called a filibuster. Now, if you've ever seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, classic.
I think a lot of high schoolers have watched that. Yeah.
What he does in that movie is a filibuster. He stands up and talks for hours and hours to prevent a vote from happening. Nowadays, you don't have to do that classic style of filibustering. All you have to do is basically say, I filibuster. And I mean, I don't even know if you really have to say it, but
I declare filibuster.
Yeah, I declare bankruptcy. You basically all you have to do is say, no, we're filibustering this. And if either side, Republicans or Democrats, decide to filibuster something, in order for it to go to a vote, a full vote of the Senate, there have to be 60 people that vote to break the filibuster. And because Senate Republicans have a majority in the Senate, but they do not have 60 members out of 100 potential senators in the Senate, they cannot by themselves break a filibuster. So if the Democrats say, no, we're filibustering this, then it will not go to a vote.
That's interesting.
Unless some Democrats flip sides and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and vote to break the filibuster.
This is where you see on so many pop culture movies, TV shows, where you've got the aides, not the aides, what are they? Like the assistants kind of at the different Senate office, like running, trying to get on the phones and trying to coordinate to figure out who can they flip, who can they do this. We've all seen this in pop culture. And so this is reality. This is what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without an approved budget or continuing resolution, federal agencies legally cannot spend.
Right.
This is what results into the government shutdown. So this shutdown that we're in right now began October 1st, 2025, making it the first major shutdown since 2019, as we've said before. The basics of government funding. Congress controls federal spending. Each year, it must pass the 12 appropriation bills or a continuing resolution, as court talked about. If neither passes, there's a funding gap. Most federal operations must halt. Okay, just trying to summarize because there's a lot here, and it's very easy to have your eyes just glass over and be like, I don't know what's happening. As we're looking at this, what does that mean? What is happening? So you're seeing that people are being furloughed. Mm-hmm. Now there's tons of memes, there's tons of stuff out there of, people getting to just essentially act like they're on vacation. And they know that when the government opens back up, they're going to go back to work and they're going to keep going and they're going to be paid back pay for everything. And so there are people that are on halt, essentially.
Yes.
They don't know if they're going back to work tomorrow. They don't know if it's in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it may be. So there's definitely people on multiple different sides. Some people are living it up and they're going back to 2020 days and they're at home making bread and they're like enjoying their time. Others, it's nerve-wracking of what's going to happen. When am I going back to work?
Well, a lot of federal employees, a lot of military families, a lot of anybody that is impacted by the fact that even essential workers that are working, that are continuing to work right now, they're not getting paid. The military right now is without a bill specifically authorizing the pay to the military will miss their payday in just a couple of days. Yeah. They're supposed to be paid and they'll miss their payday. And there are a lot of military families that live very much paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. So this is where budgeting comes in the situation and how, yes, you have the idea that when the government opens back up, you're getting your job, but do you have appropriate funds set aside? Are you able to float during this?
Yeah.
Me again, dumb question. That's my only role here. At least I know what it is. Is this a federal government shutdown only? And the reason I ask that is because government jobs, that is so vague. And I'm just like, okay, what are government jobs? Yes. And it can go local, like firefighters, librarians. Then you've got state, you've got federal, you've got public education. Mm-hmm. There's so many branches. Right. Is this one specific column?
This is federal only.
Federal only. Okay, that helps.
Now, the basically a freeze of all federal funding can impact state agencies.
Ripple effect.
There is a ripple effect, but the federal budget only pays federal bills and only pays federal employees. So the only thing that is being shut down for lack of a budget having been passed is federal agencies, federal employees, and so forth.
Okay, got it.
So basically the OMB, or Office of Management and Budget, the group that basically determines
what shuts it down and what doesn't.
It's basically like, okay, we've got this cash flow and this is how it's going to be distributed, right? So they send out guidance to every agency saying like, these are the workers that need to stay on. These are essential workers. These are not essential workers. They need to go home, so on and so forth.
So who is working? Let's list that out.
Well, we are, obviously, but none of us are federal employees.
We're not government, no.
We know military's working because National Guard today started patrolling Memphis.
Yeah. That's a good point. But they are a group that is considered essential, and they are working.
They are accepted.
They are accepted from being furloughed, but they are not being paid. So
you can imagine those people that they're working. They're probably to the bare bones. So they're not being paid, and they're probably having to do a lot more than usual because they don't have the non-essential people there. Which reality we all know, even from COVID. Non-essential workers are essential still.
Yeah.
So it's military personnel, air traffic controllers, TSA. So but you've seen, even with flying right now, they're talking about delays because you do have TSA agents, you do have the air traffic controllers, but you're probably going to have a little bit less.
You basically these are employees who have been told you're not going to get paid, but we need you to go ahead and come to work.
Yeah.
Because you're essential. And so you actually have some that are saying like,
I'm not doing that.
Not me.
Fun fact, the Nashville airport, they are using Memphis's air traffic controllers because they are struggling through this.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, Memphis, the air traffic control in Memphis covers a pretty large area anyway. You would be surprised, like not every airport in the country has their own air traffic control.
Yeah.
They're controlled out of some central locations, and Memphis is one of those central locations. Because we do have a lot of flights through this airport, even though it's not necessarily
a hub.
Retail.
We
have a lot of shipping flights and so forth.
So Border Patrol and law enforcement, emergency, medical, and disaster response, federal prisons, some cybersecurity and financial oversight functions. So that's kind of who's continuing to work.
Right.
Who got sent home? Everybody else.
Yeah.
Administrative staff and federal agencies.
Which means that all those people that are having to work because they're considered essential have no administrative support.
Which you can imagine the delays that would cause. IRS employees, about 50% were furloughed. So yes, the IRS is still functioning. So don't let that give you a passive, I don't have to do what I need to do for the IRS.
Well, that I did get the question the other day, like the deadline in Tennessee for filing your taxes was extended because of a disaster that we had in the first part of the year. It was extended to November 3rd.
What are they going to do?
If this thing goes on for 35 days like the last one did, do people still have to pay taxes was the question I was asked. Like if it's still shut down on November 3rd, do I still have to pay taxes? And I was like, I would go ahead.
They would just extend the date.
I would make sure you have your stuff done.
Yeah.
So many departments of health and human service workers, about 41% are furloughed. National park rangers, museum staff, research administrators, all of those different things that you may not even realize are government, then those are sent home. So those places are shut down.
Now, because we're an investment podcast, and you would think that this would be obvious, but I will make this statement anyway because it may not be obvious to everyone. Something like the New York Stock Exchange is not a government entity. It is not shut down during this. It is not affected in that way by the shutdown. The markets may respond to the shutdown, but the market itself is not closed for business.
And the Federal Reserve.
So Federal Reserve is an independent agency. Its funding source is actually kind of complicated, so I'm not sure.
Okay, we won't go down that rabbit hole. But yes, the stock market's still functioning. You're still moving forward with that. We're still working. So what stops and what keeps running? Services that continue, then Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, as we talked about, the life and well-being of people. Veterans health care. Postal Service is self-funded, so you're still going to get your mail. You're still going to get that. Although, if that's a whole nother conversation of what's going on with the Postal Service.
Oh, listen, we could do a whole episode on.
We'll put a pin in that one. We need to do that.
Yeah, that's some crazy stuff.
Air traffic control, TSA, border security, federal courts.
Yeah, federal courts are still open, still running. You gotta process those criminals.
I would say if you are signed up for jury duty, just don't assume that it's not going to happen. You need to call and make sure that you're still supposed to report.
Yeah, the financial reserve is obviously it's still open because the banks remain open, and it's the central banking authority. We're not going to get into like all of the details about it.
Ins and outs of the Federal Reserve. Yeah.
When you had mentioned park rangers were furloughed, I had to Google. I said, "Well, is Yellowstone open?" All 63 national parks are technically still open, but it's very bare bones. You can go in, but you're not going to get any services in the visitor center or anything like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, It's an impact across the board. It's a huge ripple effect. And it is something that whenever it's even done, there's going to be a huge ripple after that. So what is halted or slowed down? Tax return processing and audits are delayed.
Oh, and people are all broken up about that.
Well, if they're waiting on a return, then they are.
Yeah. But the audit part?
Yeah. National parks and museums closed or understaffed, costing tourism revenue. That's a big thing. A lot of these national parks rely on you spending money in their gift shops, doing things like that. Research and grants are paused. Regulatory oversight, it lowers food safety inspections, environmental reviews. Small business administration loans are halted or delayed.
That impacts small businesses, obviously.
Yeah, and that's been a ripple effect. If you've been working hard and you're waiting for that loan to be approved to then get your business started, and now you're delayed a month, 2 months, it's all going to be a huge ripple effect, which then could influence your personal economic situation, your town's economic situation, whatever it may be. A lot of this is us repeating the exact same thing, but it's trying to clarify to you, when you see government shutdown, what does this mean? Because and I'm really dumbing this down. It's kind of that simple fact of when somebody says, oh, the power's out, and we all or maybe we don't all do this. We all kind of go, wait, what has power? Can I use the sink? Can I use the toilet? But I mean, people do that. Like they question, can I take a shower? Like, can I do this? Oh, wait. And how many people, when the power goes out, you flip a switch and you're like,
well,
all
the time. Yeah. I forgot that the power's out.
So that is a very simplified, but it's
symbolized. We just symbolized that for you.
But you're looking at this and you may not realize all the different things that are associated with the government that is going to be delayed or shut down. So the economic impact. Workers are missing paycheck. Back pay is usually guaranteed once shutdown ends. Usually guaranteed. However, in 2025, some officials are proposing no back pay for contractors, raising controversy.
Right.
While they're shut down, it's okay. Do we really need all these non-essential workers? Do they need to come back? What do we need to do? Is this a way to trim the fat?
Well, and I think really the biggest controversy there is first of all, how much are they using workers' pay and the potential that workers will not receive back pay as a lever, basically, to try and motivate the Senate to fix this.
Yeah.
And is it right to use basically innocent bystanders and their livelihood as a tool to force someone to do something that they're otherwise resisting doing? There's also a question of whether or not the executive branch actually has the authority to unilaterally decide whether or not there will be back pay, or if it would require some sort of action by Congress saying that there was not going to be any back pay. And then if Congress tried to say that, would that pass? Could that get past both houses?
So, Court, what I'm hearing is it depends.
Well,
there's a lot of different factors.
If you want to oversimplify it depends. But
we're simplifying over here.
You're symbolizing.
Symbolizing.
The other thing to keep in mind is that Congress, again, like I said at the very beginning, Congress has the power of the purse. So if Congress says these are things that we are funding, and these are funds that we are going to hand out, basically, then it's not just a simple matter of going like, okay, we're not gonna hand out those funds.
Yeah.
We're not gonna hire these people back because the funds have already been allocated to those departments or whatever. So there are a lot of questions about what actually that can be done, either by fiat, by the executive branch just saying we're not gonna, and what could be done by Congress, what will be done. I think a lot of it is bluster on every side. I think it's all politics. It's always politicians just talking, trying to get the masses, us, the people, on their side by telling them any number of things that may or may not be true or even possible.
Yeah. So just a lot's out there. Shutdown costs money, estimated $15 billion per week of closure. We said that the stock market's open, but there is an impact when we have government shutdown. Short-term volatility often increases. Markets typically rebound after funding is restored. But when you look at the basics, if you remember from our episodes talking about what moves the market, what moves individual stocks, then there is a situation that we would have missed economic data, which would be, the job reports, inflation numbers. And so because we would have missed information like that, that adds uncertainty. And what does uncertainty do to the markets?
Yeah.
causes some movement.
So two things. We've already missed the jobs report. It was due out just after the government shut down. So we've already not gotten the newest report on jobs, and job data does impact the market.
Yeah.
But as we have said a million times, the market does not like unpredictability.
Mm-hmm. We do not like uncertainty.
Yeah, uncertainty is a bad word as far as the market is concerned. And so as soon as the sooner we can get back to certainty, the better the market will act.
So what does this mean for you? Obviously, we're keeping an eye on the stock market. We're making sure we're aware. And, if you are invested in the stock market, you need to make sure that you're aware, your advisor's looking at things like that. Okay. Social Security and Medicare, we've already talked about. That's unaffected. That's mandatory spending. Tax refunds are likely delayed. Keep an eye on that November 3rd deadline if you're in Tennessee. But again, trust your accounting firm, your CPA, whoever you're working with, to make sure what they recommend is going to be best. And so don't just act like, well, my tax return is going to be furloughed as well. Like, no, don't expect that. Passports and travel documents. This process is going to be slowed or delayed. It already was really slow. And so if you were trying to hurry up and get your passport before a trip or something like that, you just expect this. This could really impact your trip, which can then be an economic issue to you if you have to cancel your trip. Mm-hmm. Student loans. Servicing continues, but support centers have longer wait times. They already had a long wait time. So this is just then going to be another area of frustration. So just be patient. Federal housing assistance, potential delays in payments to landlords and tenants. And the national parks, again, closure, limited access during fall tourism season. If you were planning your October trip to Yellowstone or anything like that, it could be an impact. Like, we've got a conference coming up at the end of the month in D.C., and there could be not a lot going on for us to do in D.C. if we can't go to any of the museums.
Yeah, that's true. As we've already mentioned, some agencies that are staying open are still going to be impacted due to lack of administrative support or just people not showing up for work. So travel has been impacted already, and it could continue to be impacted. Planes can't fly without air traffic control, and people can't get on the planes if there's no security for the airports. So all of those things could potentially they're going to affect you. Somebody who never travels and really never just leaves their town, you may see limited impact. But we'll see. It's also going to depend on how long it goes. And right now,
I would say we're in the beginning of it, or hopefully, well, I would hope we were towards the end of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not making any predictions. I think everybody wants to see the shutdown end as soon as possible. If we all wish hard enough, then still it's going to take the Senate passing something before it'll actually.
This is not the Care Bear stare that we can wish it into existence and it's going to happen.
So you got to keep your eye on Congress. If you don't have to be a political junkie, but this is obviously in the news every day. And like, for instance, yesterday the Senate had another vote to try and pass something, or actually just to try and break the filibuster, and that failed. So yet again, it's just going to every day probably, or every couple of days, the Senate will take another vote and see if anybody flips, and if anybody does, then it could end. Or if they actually start negotiating, trying to come up with a compromise so that people will flip. Because right now they're basically just saying, you should flip because you're being bad by not flipping. They have not been willing to come to the table, the two parties, and sit down and negotiate any sort of compromise. If at some point they do decide to negotiate, that's something to keep your eye on as well.
Yeah.
Will they come up with a compromise that could get a vote passed?
We've talked about this already and hit a lot of this, the postponing, all the different ripple effects that can happen. So a government shutdown is just not a political showdown. It's not a pissing contest just with the politicians. It does have an impact. As Court said, some of you could have very little, but the majority of it, it's going to be that ripple that reaches your paycheck, your vacation, your data, your daily life, your investment accounts, whatever it may be. So stay informed. Don't panic. Don't be alarmed. Really just be aware. And that's what this podcast is coming to you. Hopefully, by the time it's released, there's a little bit more knowledge of how long this is going to last. But I really wanted to make sure that everyone understood what a government shutdown was, because this is not something we've touched before. This is not something that we've experienced since we've been doing this podcast. And this is just something that people assumed, oh, I know what it is, and you don't really understand it.
I also, to be fair, we live in Tennessee, and so Tennessee is not exactly usually a hub of federal activity.
Yeah.
But there are states where a large portion of the state's and or cities' population is involved in federal government and in federal
DC.
Yeah, DC, Virginia,
Maryland.
A lot of those areas are going to be significantly more impacted than we are down here, and so
and most. I mean, I know
again,
I've got a couple of people who are furloughed right now, and just kind of getting their take on it. And it's the first couple of days. It's like, oh, I can catch up on my laundry, I can do stuff, and now it's kind of like, what are we doing?
Yeah. When am I going to get paid? How am I going to pay rent?
Yeah.
So on. And again, a lot of the federal workers that are furloughed right now are just really kind of innocent bystanders in all this. So we certainly hope that the government gets back online soon. And we'll see. Some people need to flip, or some compromise needs to be made. We'll see what happens. But don't panic.
Yeah.
I guess is kind of the bullseye of the episode.
Be informed, don't panic.
Yeah, be informed, but don't panic. And there's the closing bell. Ladies and gentlemen, you've made it to the end of yet another episode of the BullCast podcast. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and sign up to have our podcast delivered directly to your device every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Cortland, Katie, Cameron, and Nicole, please feel free to go to our website. That website is bullcastpodcast.com. We've got pictures up there. We've got bios of us. We've also got a place where you can drop a comment or suggest a topic you'd like to hear us talk more about. But hey, I mentioned pictures. We do have an Instagram handle where we do have pictures. That handle is at BullCast Podcast. We also have an X handle where we have the words, and that handle is at BullCast Podcast as well. Rounding out the social media, we do have a Facebook page, which is BullCast the Podcast. But I do like to mention every single episode for your edification that Cameron, Katie, Nicole, and I all work at a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors. And if you'd like to find out more about us, or find out about what we do, find out about what we could potentially do for you, find out about our amazing team, or find out about our boss, David Pickler, please feel free to go to that website. That website is picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O.
Not an E.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've given you everything you need to stay calm and not panic. So for now, I'm Court.
I'm Katie.
I'm Cam.
And we're done.